Hey guys, welcome to Objectively Put. Today I'm going to be covering Democratic Senator from California, presidential hopeful Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, as I've been corrected numerous times by various people. Now, I recently covered Kirsten Gillibrand, and although I'm still very skeptical of her, I was surprised at her voting record. I mean, and in a good way at that. And most of my skepticism comes from her Wall Street ties. Now, in the case of Kamala Harris, it's worse than I thought. But let's get to it, the good and the bad. The good: she's pro choice, she's pro gay rights, she's in favor of gun reform, and she made a pretty strong stance on that in the town hall she had, the CNN town hall, so that's good. I think she would actually fight for that. She's in favor of the Paris Agreement. She's considering signing on to the free college bill. She says she's for Medicare for all. Now, to be clear, and I've said it before, there's a difference between people who were early supporters of Medicare for all and those who saw the tide shift in the way that America is in favor of it, so they in turn support it. So there's a difference. But credit where credit is due for supporting it. But jumping on board when you can score political points makes me believe that it won't be a priority should she win the presidency. Moving on. She's against TPP, which is a terrible trade deal that will lead to more outsourcing and allow corporations to act independent of the nations they're stationed in. Shady dealings would grant them representations of lawyers they hired themselves. Yeah. Yeah. So they can get away with a lot. Hillary was for TPP until late in the campaign, and Obama was for it even in his final months in office. So Kamala Harris is against that, which is really good. I mean, TPP would be a disaster on a jobs market. With that being said, that's the good. Let's move on to the bad. She was against body cameras on police officers. Yeah. I mean, that should be a layup for any Democrat running. And there are statistics that show a drop in police misconduct when instituting body cameras. People who are being watched tend to be more careful in their actions. Now, we've seen a lot of instances where excessive force was still used even with a body camera. But in trying to fix the law, in trying to fix law enforcement, every bit helps until we're actually in a better place with that. She's against it because she was Attorney General in California and is the stereotypical law and order person who pretends the law isn't biased. That also means in almost every situation, she's going to side with the cops. She's super pro-Israel to the point of Israel can do no wrong. And I gotta make this distinction now. When people say they're pro-Israel, when people in government, they don't mean pro-Israel as in the people, like the civilians. They're talking about the Israeli government. So when people are saying Israel's doing this and that wrong, people to the left, I myself included, it's the Israel government. In the same way the United States government does things wrong all the time, but that doesn't mean you can paint the citizens with that broad brush. It's the government. But I digress. Now, she even went to AIPAC and said, all the pro-Israel stuff, including giving them money, want in support of giving them money and weapons that are in turn used to occupy Palestine. And they use the money and weapons to bomb Gaza. They kill women and children. I mean, they give these guys money and weapons, no questions asked. Terrible to say the least. She gave a speech at AIPAC 2 years ago. It circulated the internet. People on the left were kind of taken aback by it. So when she went to give a speech to AIPAC last year, she did it in private, knowing she had presidential aspirations. She did the smart thing and didn't do a public speech. But again, that's terrible and flat out wrong to support the type of government that violates human rights of a sovereign land so badly. She refused to prosecute Steve Mnuchin when she was Attorney General of California. This was after the subprime mortgage crisis that kicked people out of their homes. Her own office said that he needed to be prosecuted because Mnuchin was the head of One West Bank in California. That bank illegally was foreclosing on people during that time. Harris saw all of that and decided not to prosecute. Lo and behold, he donated to her campaign for Senate. She's against legalizing recreational marijuana. She held that position in 2014. I'm not sure where she stands now, but back in 2014 when it was brought up, she laughed at the idea. She laughed at it. Again, that background in law enforcement makes her think that it's just out of the question. Think about how many nonviolent drug offenders we have in jail due to the war on drugs. And those same nonviolent drug offenders end up in these for-profit prisons that have disproportionately locked up black and brown people. The current criminal justice system that is referred to as the new Jim Crow by experts, look it up, I'm not lying, I'm not making this up, is a system that she took in part of in some of the most vicious ways. She defended California's 3-strike law. That means after 3 felonies, no matter how small they are, straight up life in prison. Again, private prisons keep you and make money off of you till the day that you die. She repeatedly sided with police over wrongfully convicted individuals. There was one guy named Daniel Larson who was found innocent by a federal judge. She fought to keep him locked up off of the technicality that he was late to file some paperwork. She was a proponent of civil asset forfeiture. That's legalized theft by cops. So a cop can say, hey, you look suspicious and we may want to file some charges on you, so we're going to take your car, whatever. We're going to take something from you. Under civil asset forfeiture, they can do that before any charges are filed, just off of them saying that you're suspicious and not give anything back. Yet again, another unconstitutional measure. Now, like I said, Kamala Harris's record is worse than I thought it would be. I already had reserves about her because she was a corporate Democrat, or she is a corporate Democrat, and a lot of her recent showings and stuff had been, in light of her running for president. So she's been a lot more visible lately, and that is the right thing to do, but it always strikes me as suspicious when someone just kind of becomes more visible because of their aspirations, not because they're principled in their stances and just want to maintain that stance. So, I say all that, and for me, personally, she's an automatic no-go. I'm a black person, and people of color can understand her stances on criminal justice are just a no-go. We can't, I couldn't support that. But, I leave it up to everybody to be objective in their own judgment, and see you next time.